And if you only look at the dark sides of life, and there are many in this time, it's really difficult to discover ground of hope. So this is one of the muscles we need to train, to use your expression, because it's the only way to keep going.
This is a podcast called Walk, Talk, Listen. An attempt to connect people and make this world a bit better by sharing opinions and experiences based on the belief that everyone's perspective is true, albeit partial. My name is Maurice Blom, and I would like to welcome you to yet another episode of Walk, Talk, Listen. Good day, everybody. This is another episode of the podcast Walk, Talk, Listen. And as always, I'm delighted with today's guest who will introduce herself. Karin, please go ahead.
Thank you, Maurice. My name is Karin van der Broeke. I live in the Netherlands. I'm responsible for an organization that's an integrated part of the Protestant Church in the Netherlands. And it's a department for mission and diaconia. Very nice work. Most of it is abroad, but 10% of our work is in the Netherlands. And these are all projects that have to do with development.
Mm-hmm. And how many years have you been doing that?
Only for 2 years. I'm in this job. Perhaps it's nice to know that I'm a minister, reverend of the Protestant Church in the Netherlands for more than 30 years already. And I served at several places. I started as a chaplain in a small village. Then I became a student and university chaplain. Then after 10 years, I went back to a small village again. Then I was appointed to the president of the Synod of the Protestant Church in the Netherlands. And in that time, I also got engaged in the World Council of Churches, still in the board of the World Council of Churches. After 5 years, my term as a president of my church was over, and I went back to a local congregation, and now I'm serving at this place.
Wow, that's pretty impressive, and especially, I mean, all those things that you have done have, different types of impact, but I think on a relatively young age, from my point of view, being the general secretary, that's a big thing. I would like to go there and know more about what you did and how you look back now. But my guests are always interested. How did you get where you are now? So where did you grow up? And were you born in the Netherlands, and where did you go to school? And tell a little bit about that, Karin.
Yeah, well, of course, for me, it's my normal life. It's my experience that people always have the feeling, it's a little bit special. Yeah. Because my whole life I served in the church as a professional. And I was born, after I was born, my parents chose to baptize me, but we didn't go. We didn't attend church. My parents didn't, and my father was a little bit against it. Even for my mother, it was connected to her childhood, but it was not that much of meaning. And when I was a student, I started as a student in law.
So why did you decide to study law?
Well, at that point, I think I was really interested in what's justice about, what's truth about, how can we serve those in society. And I think that also came a little bit from my background. I'm born in Rotterdam, a huge city in the Netherlands. And my father too was born over there. And he was born then in 1933, years before the war started, Second World War. And I think he, as a young boy, he had really bad experiences in Rotterdam. The city was bombed, not far from his house. And I always felt my father has a kind of distrust, a voice in his whole life. And for me as a child, I felt, this is not what I like. This is not how I want to look at life. So I always was searching for where are the positive things in life? Can we live from a little bit of trust and love and solidarity? And I started studying law, serving justice, I thought at that moment. And some of my friends that I remember from my study time on, they went on this way and they did a really good job. For me, the first 2 years of this study, a lot about rules and regulations. And I was looking for something, what's really inside there? And at that time, there was a pastor, a minister from the Protestant Church in the Netherlands, whom I met. And he told me about the Bible and how he combined the questions of justice, peace, and stories in the Bible with each other. And for me, it was just so inspiring. And I thought, well, let's go this way. Let's just try it.
Yeah, and it was actually a very famous minister in the Netherlands, right?
Yeah,
that you met. Yeah.
His name is Karel ter Linde.
Yeah.
And at that time, he served near the city where I was a student. But later on, he went to The Hague, where also our queen was living. And he was the one that married Alexander and Maxima, Willem-Alexander and Maxima, our king and queen at the moment. Yeah.
Oh. Yeah. So then after 2 years, when you decided to study theology, how did your parents react to that? And did you really enjoy it from the beginning, or was that also going like, is this the right choice that I've made? How did that go?
For my parents, they were really worried. What are you going to do? Theology. My father, I think he felt a responsibility during his whole life to serve his family, to earn enough money. And he said, what are you going to do? Theology. Are you going to live from the beggar staff? So he was really worried also because of that. And of course, also in that study, there were some tough parts, but I really liked it. When I started, I couldn't imagine becoming a minister. I was just open. I was interested in stories. I was interested in, is there something that deeper and that helps me understanding how people can reflect on their lives, how are there different perspectives on what's the meaning of life, which instruments are helpful for people on their way. What does it mean that we talk about common goods? What does it mean that we talk about justice and peace? Is there one set of rules that serves justice, or is it more a concept? And what's helpful to reflect on this concept? With whom can you share these concepts? And what interested me in the Bible is that also in the Bible, it's not one set of rules. It's just a pile of stories about people struggling in life, but somehow they live with the concept of hope. They live with the concept of trust, and they are motivated to live their lives with courage, with the direction. And the direction is we trust that God is with us on the way of justice and peace.
And then you although you were just telling me, when you studied it because you had an interest and an appetite for understanding, more about life and why we here, purpose, and but then you finish your study and you do get into going to a small town and so how did that happen then finally? So what made you to go for it all the way, or I don't know how you say that exactly, but how did that happen?
I think this was quite a process. During my study time, of course, there were some students that were more experienced in the study, and they planned to go their way in the church, and they told about it. They were very much inspired, and it was during my study time that I just started thinking about it. What does it mean to be church? Okay, church needs ministers. What does it mean to be a minister? And during the way, I thought, it's really fascinating. Being a minister, it means that you can share your inspiration. You are with so many people. You really can close to people in their homes, in their hearts, in their families. In their you talk with them about what keeps them going, what's motivating them. But the church as a whole also plays a role in society. So which role can you play? And at the end of my study, I decided let's give it a try.
And if I understand your story correctly, it seems to me that although you studied theology, the reason your search was very similar to why you started law as well. I mean, that's very active around justice, the way I understand it, and in such a way that the Protestant Church then asks you at a certain moment to be the president or the general secretary of the Synod, right? So that's a big deal. So I have two questions about it. One is, why do you think you were asked to serve? And second, if you look back at that period, what are you most proud of if you look back in terms of what you were able to do?
Yes, I think it was very special that I was asked to serve in this position. When I started, I told in the Netherlands that I started as a girl that didn't attend church at all for 18 years. And in a way, I think it was touching for people, so like a little sign of hope in a country that is so much secularized, to hear about someone that really chooses for the church. So that was the good part of it. For me, you're correct. What motivates me in the church is that the church has a role in society. And the church is a place where we can reflect together from a hopeful perspective that there is a God. And I'm not sure about who, how, where God is. But the concept of God is we all have our own interest. And God has only one interest, and that's the best for the whole of creation, for each and everyone. Well, I think that was what I was looking for, perhaps you could say, my whole life. And that's what still keeps me going.
Yeah. And before I ask you to answer the second part of my question, I have a follow-up question on the first. Just for the audience, because I've been living now for close to 13 years in the US, and there, talking about faith, about God, it's part of, could be part of a normal conversation. That's not the case, having said, well, I've left 30 years ago. I left the Netherlands 30 years ago, but I grew up in the Netherlands where you did not talk about your faith. If you had a faith, you did never talk about God, and actually, if you were, if you went to church, it would not be something that you would tell your friends. So within that particular context, that's different. So being, the head of the church in the Netherlands is then maybe different. Not maybe, it is different than in a country like the US. So how do you see that?
I agree with you that in the Netherlands it's not the normal thing to talk about a church, to talk about your faith, to talk about God. And what scares me the most, that if people are talking about God, it's most of the times in a very conservative way. For instance, one of the topics is homosexuality. When I hear something about on the radio about homosexuality and church, it's oh well, these are Christians, so they are against homosexuality. It's quite the opposite. When I started attending the church, I came in a church that really believed in a God that was searching for the well-being of each and everyone. So in Leiden, the oldest university city in the Netherlands, there was a church. The whole of the community went in a demonstration for the gay rights. And for me, this came very much together. The way of being church and my own belief in God, what I was searching for, came together. And I think this also answers your second question. What's the thing that I'm proud of? Period that I was president of my church, I think we showed in society that there's more church than the conservative part. That church has to do with all aspects of life. The church is open for everyone, and not only open for, well, please, you are welcome, come and visit us and be part of our framework. And no, we are really interested in people, and we are really wanting to serve all people, and we are looking for a society in which all people can flourish.
Karin, if you look at Protestant Church now, is that something that is still there? So, did the Protestant Church continue to have that, empathy, inclusiveness after you left?
Yes.
You did not leave, but after you left as the leader.
Yeah. Yes, I think so. And of course, our church is a church with many varieties. So there are 1,700 congregations, and they are all different. The position I have now is exactly this position. How can you be church in society, and how can you serve people? How can you serve creation? The World Council of Churches is established in the Netherlands in 1948. Of course, after the Second World War, many of those worldwide institutions were established. I think it was a reaction on the fact that we had a world war, and that lots of people thought, this is not what we expect from life. This is not what we are looking for. How can we serve humanity, promote solidarity with each other? The World Council of Churches started in 1948. We are now 75, 76 years later. But it's this inspiration is still there. And at the moment, we are really reconnecting as Protestant Church to the World Council of Churches, because we do see people are church and they talk about God in their very small communities. But as in my own life, the local character of the church and the global, it belongs together. And the World Council of Churches is an ecumenical body, and ecumenism is not only about the unity within churches, but this unity represents the unity of the wholeness of life, of creation we are longing for.
If I look at your journey, so I see justice is an important one, but then also not only advocating or living and working in your own church, but really reaching out to other Christian churches as well. So you alluded to that, the ecumenical movement, and where does that come from? What do you hope that will ultimately lead to?
Um, well, perhaps we can take the example at this moment. I think worldwide we are all touched by what we see, what's going on in Israel and Gaza. And in a way, when you look at that situation, well, human-wise, there's no solution. There are almost no signs of hope anymore. I like in church together is that somehow we find our way, recalling ourselves to a positive attitude. You look at the situation and you see only the dark sides of life, but it's not helpful if we just are depressed, stay behind, rest in our chairs, and don't say any words anymore. That's not helpful for the world. So we need to find a way to address the dark sides of life and to see how we can add some sparks of light. There are only a few sparks of light, but we have to look for them, and let's see what we can do to let them grow.
And can you maybe allude to, what in this case is the World Council of Churches trying to do within this, within this war, within this, and how is it, and what is the role of the ecumenical movement in relation to, because I think if you talk about Gaza, it seems that interfaith collaboration is important. So how does ecumenism fit into that or relate with that?
Yeah. I think in the World Council of Churches, it's a process for years and years that, for instance, Christians in Palestine, they take a strong place in the World Council of Churches, and they are very strong in non-violence. For me, it doesn't matter that these are the Christian people, because we are looking for the rights for all people. This choice for non-violence is a significant one. I visited Israel and Palestine myself several times. And January last year, I visited also Jerusalem, and there were some very young military people on the street. And we started asking them, what are you doing? Why are you serving? And they were so, we have to serve. If we don't serve the army of Israel, Israel will be blown away. We just told them that we visited Ramallah, Palestine city, that afternoon. They were almost blown away. How can it be that you visited Ramallah and that you are still alive? It's just an example that people think in black and white. These are the good ones, these are the bad ones. There's in World Council of Churches, the Palestinians are those that need support worldwide. The Arab countries, they want to support the Palestinians. Other countries want to support Israel. But what do we do to show those who want to support Israel that not all the Palestinians are terrorists? That people are different, and that they are all people, and that they in a way are all longing for a safe place to live. Jews are longing for a safe place to live. Palestinians are searching for a safe place to live. And how can we promote a dialogue on living peaceful together? It seems so naive during these days to have that goal to serve the dialogue, but well, I think it's the only way. In the World Council of Churches, we try to promote that way, and in the Protestant Church in the Netherlands, we try to promote that way. It's complicated because the Jews in our country, they are angry at us whenever we use the word Palestinians in a positive way. But we need to stay hopeful and to address that the only way is people looking at each other, share the good things in life and share the wounds they all have.
No, thank you for sharing that, Karin. Because I really believe in the power of connecting people. That's what I hope that this little podcast is contributing to as well. That the listeners, they don't have to agree with my guests, but that you realize that there's always something where you say, oh, that makes sense, and you start at that point where you agree. And talking with each other in dialogue, and that is very much necessary in this world today. I have a question about the organization you work for now, because yes, you're part of the World Council of Churches, but you also work, as you alluded to in the beginning, Kerk and Actie. So that's the ACT Alliance Netherlands, right? So what is your role there, and what do you hope you and Kerk and Actie will contribute to and is doing? Yeah.
My job title is Chief Program Officer. We have a CEO, a COO, and a CPO, and the three of us are responsible for Kerk and Actie. And it's my duty and my job to think about what's the reason that we are on earth. Kerk in Actie, a church in action, you could say. It's putting also this church in a worldwide network of churches and other organizations that together wants to serve humanity, justice, peace. We are aiming for is how do we connect with all those people worldwide like us, searching for justice, peace, integrity of creation. And we use the network of churches, and we call it being a church worldwide. But in all the other countries we work with, it's always the church and other organizations, and serving all people, not only serving Christians. Sometimes this is a kind of misunderstanding. It's serving the whole of society. But we think faith and church can be a positive change maker in society. It's our unique selling point to say that we use this as a network.
Just for people who are not familiar with the Netherlands. So are you considered to be is that an NGO in Kerk and Actie, or like, because you have Court Aid in the Netherlands, you have Oxfam. Are you a similar organization like that, or is it different?
No, it looks like an NGO, but it's an integrated part of the Protestant Church in the Netherlands.
Okay.
So you could say it's a department of the Protestant Church in the Netherlands. Yeah.
Okay.
And we serve more or less as an NGO. It's an integrated part. When we formulate our objectives, we want to do more on sustainability, for instance, we have to go to the Synod of our church to agree on that. Yeah.
Okay. And where do you get your funding then from?
Most of the money comes from churches, from local congregations. And there are also many individual donors, some stakeholders that want to support our projects. But it's in that way, it's you could say it's a non-governmental. There are no programs that are funded by the government. So most of it, individual persons that want to donate, and local congregations, people in local congregations.
Yeah. Thanks. You mentioned about the sustainable development goals. That's something that I always try to lift up within this podcast as well, because I really think it's important. It's a framework that we came up with as a world. It's not perfect, but at least it's an effort in trying to make this world more sustainable. Now, the latest report shows that we are at 15% on average, in reaching these 17 goals. So that's not good. So my question to you is, what do you would like the listeners to know about the Sustainable Development Goals? Because I know in the Netherlands many people know about it. In the US, we don't talk a lot about it. So yeah, what do you want the listeners to know about the SDGs?
Yeah, what I really like on that framework of the Sustainable Development Goals is that it's a framework that connects things. It's on sustainability, it's on education, very concrete, and it helps us if we follow this path to be there in 2030. There are concrete objectives. What I see in the Netherlands is that some of the development organizations, they really work with these sustainability goals, but there are so many people in the Netherlands that do not care at all. And it's perhaps because for people who are working in the development sector, it's helpful. It's a framework. But if you are not in this sector already, it's sometimes difficult to be inspired by a framework. People get inspired by, for instance, on sustainability, stories they hear about Uganda and how farmers really struggle with periods of drought and periods of floods. How people in Kenya or in Ethiopia, how they have to do cattle dying because lack of water. I think it's very helpful to work with the Sustainable Development Goals if you are in the sector. We as people working within the sector, we have to explain the real thing in life to people to get them motivated to change their lifestyle, for instance.
Thank you for lifting that up. What is interesting to see, probably because the Netherlands are going into new elections, is to see which political party is mentioning the 17 Sustainable Development Goals, because it's definitely something that Europe and the world is looking at. And again, you're right. So some countries are better than others. One of the reasons, a growing group of people in the world is saying that one of the reasons that we are only at 50% on average, that we are not. We don't. It seems that we are not going to reach those goals before 2030, and that's it's not only because of all the crises and wars that are going on. This growing group of people is saying that it is also because we are not paying proper attention to the knowledge, skills, and ability that you need as an individual and as a community. And as a result, they did a survey. And on the basis of this survey, they came up with 5 inner development goals. And it is being, thinking, relating, collaborating, and acting. Now, what is, if you hear that, what do you think about these inner development goals? And then maybe the question that I would like to ask to you is that somehow related with, your work and your passion in terms of the church and faith, bringing that back into people's lives?
Yeah, I think it has all to do with each other because this inner development goals, this is of course we have our objectives. We are going to reach them or we are not going to reach them, but these are our objectives in outcomes, you could say. But what's helpful to come over there? It needs the motivation of people, and it needs their ability to act to reach the goals. Well, we already talked about people need the stories about real people in other parts of the world to get motivated to change things in life and to act in a way. Then you are at the point of the inner development goals. We want to reach something, but it needs people who are motivated and who are doing the thing, who are changing the lives, who are lobbying at our government.
Some people that have talked about it, it's, all, if you talk about empathy or, love, taking care of others, you need to compare it. Well, they compare it with a muscle, so if you never train it, then how can you expect that it will work?
Yeah.
So does it resonate with you?
Yeah.
And how do we train then ourselves? How would you what is the golden tip from your perspective?
Yeah. it's perhaps it sounds a little bit conservative, but for me, a church life is a really thing. Always a little bit sad when people think, oh yes, going to church, it means, in the Netherlands, people sometimes say it means wearing black pants. But for me, it's exactly on this point. You come together once a week, you share stories, you hear a story, you reflect on life. For me, it was an experience, for instance, that in the church we have so many songs, and there are so many songs about peace. And when I'm in my small village in the southwest part of our country, it sounds very nice to sing about peace, but it doesn't really touch the heart, or comes close to the heart. When I had my first meeting with the World Council of Churches, it was with someone from Palestine that I entered the chapel and sang such a nice song on peace. And I suddenly realized, singing together about peace with someone close to me from Palestine, the word peace means immediately something else. I suddenly realized that it's not that we are such a nice, calm village in a rural part of the Netherlands. No, we are a worldwide community, and there are many parts in which there's no peace at all. This is a way of training ourselves in something is asked from us. So how do we train the muscle? Share stories, do realize that we are part of a worldwide family. When we talk about sustainability, of course, in the Netherlands, we hear stories about pollution, but it's not really affecting the situation in the Netherlands so much. But when we hear the stories Indonesia or from the Pacific, it helps to understand why it is needed to have a sustainable development goal on sustainability. And it needs the motivation and training of our inner development goals to really get engaged to these objectives.
I would like to piggyback on a couple of things you said in terms of, because the word hope, you mentioned a couple of times, connecting, listening, sharing narratives with each other is important. So a couple of episodes ago, I started introducing a new question, a new way of asking questions, because I'm introducing a question of my previous guest. So, in really connecting all of the different guests with each other in a more even intentional way. So I have a question of my previous guest for you, and she is asking you.
Yeah, I would be really interested to hear your thoughts on hope. Do you feel like that is a motivating force for you? Where do you find it? Is it something that is a distraction, maybe? There's a lot of talk in the youth climate movement about this, so I'm always interested to hear people's thoughts.
Oh, that's a nice and good question. Yeah. Well, it's a motivating factor. Yes, I think it's quite clear from my story that it is a motivating factor. And I would wish so many people they have this motivating factor. When I look at a lot of young people in the Netherlands, I think they are sometimes so stressed about climate, about polarization, about the war in Ukraine, about Israel and Gaza. And if you only look at the dark sides of life, and there are many in this time, it's really difficult to discover a ground of hope. So this is one of the muscles we need to train, to use your expression, because it's the only way to keep going, get each other motivated. So we really need this hope. And for me, I discovered, I call it God, whatever God and whomever God may be, but it's for me the language in which I can express myself. And this is because Well, in the Bible, there are so many sad stories too about sexual abuse, violence. So many sad stories. Even in these sad stories, the huge story about God with us and who's asking us, please don't sit down. Please come, go with me. We are on a journey of justice and peace. That's what keeps me going. Yeah, I cannot prove there is a God. And for me, it's not the most important thing. But I experienced in my life that just this word hope or the word trust, it was helpful for me to find a positive way of living. So that's what yeah, well, I would be happy if many young people would discover such a ground of being.
Yeah, your question for the next guest.
We talked about hope, about solidarity, about justice, but peace is another important word, I think, during this time. And my question to your next guest, eager to know who it will be, would be peace. Where do you experience peace in your own life? And what helps you to promote peace? And do you dare to hope for peace for this world? In a way, these are three questions, but all related to the word peace.
Yeah, no, good. Yeah, and music is very dear to me. So I always have a question about music as well. And a lot of my guests find this the most difficult question that I always ask. But if I would ask you to mention a song or a piece of music that embodies for a big part what you, Karin, are about, which song or piece of music would that be and why?
Oh, there are many songs that inspire me, many songs from the church, but perhaps there's one a nice song from Edith Piaf. And it sounds a little bit negative, perhaps, but non rien à rien, non je ne regrette rien. No, there's nothing that I regret. Well, this message sounds a little bit negative, but for me, it's a very positive song because it reminds me of whatever there is in your past. Don't keep your eyes on the past. Keep your eyes on the future. And please go on in a positive way. Go on with this ground of being. Go on with your words of hope. Go on with all those things that inspire you. So that's I like also the voice of Edith Piaf. She's very nice, but it's really strong, I think. Non rien à rien, non je ne regrette rien.
Great, and I will add that to the Spotify playlist that I made, and there you can listen to all the songs that have been selected by the previous guest, and it's really interesting because it goes from chansons to classical music, from hard rock to R&B, folk. So it's really great. So if you go to Spotify and you search for #Walk Talk Listen, you will find all the songs that have been selected. Karin, any message, invitation, or question for the listeners?
No, I think it was nice to talk to you. It's nice that you came up with these inner development goals. And perhaps that's a good thing to end with. The inner development goals, of course, it's also a framework, but I think it's nice for people to know what are my inner development goals. What do I want to train? Which muscle needs a little bit more attention? That could be my message at the end.
Okay. That's great. I have one last question for you, though, and that is related to something that is happening here in the US on CBS by Steve Hartman. He examines one simple act of kindness and how it creates a ripple effect. And so I have two quick questions around this. One, what are your thoughts about one simple act of kindness and its potential to create a ripple effect? And second is, if I ask you now on the spot to come up with one simple act of kindness this week, what would you do?
Yeah, 2 questions. Last week, I heard a story from one of our theologians in the Netherlands, Katja Tolstaya. She was a refugee years and years ago from the Soviet Union, and she lives now in the Netherlands, and her husband is from Ukraine. So when the war in Ukraine started, they decided we can have some refugees in our home. And she showed me 2 pictures. One of the pictures was a drawing the children made a few weeks after they arrived in the Netherlands. And it was a very aggressive picture. And then she showed me another picture, and it was a few weeks ago. She came home from her work. And she went a little bit in a hurry to her home, and her husband took her out, and he said, have you seen the street? The children made a drawing, and they made a drawing of a peaceful house with children playing. And he said, Katja, we did a good job. The children feel at home now. They are safe. They are, of course, this is not a little gift of kindness. It's a real decision to have refugees in your home. But I like that story very much. And for me, I have a small garden, and we grow some vegetables in our garden. And I always like it how people in my part of the country just share their vegetables. These are very small gifts, and it doesn't take that much from you, because if you grow vegetables, there's always too much in your garden. But it's such a kind way of creating a sharing community, and to promote the feeling of people belonging to each other, looking at each other, and just share the gifts that we receive.
Right. So you will be sharing your vegetables this week with your community. Great. Karin, thank you so much. These conversations always go fast. And any question I should have asked you that I didn't, or are we good?
I think we did a good job, Maurice. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for everything you do and for who you are. And have a great rest of the week.
Thank you for this nice podcast. Bye-bye.
Bye. Thank you for listening to Walk, Talk, Listen. Please check us out on 100mile.org or follow us on Facebook or Instagram.